Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a new session. I hope all of you are doing great, and I hope you have had a lovely weekend. Yes. So, uh, in the last week, we were doing our series on UP PSC exam, and we got some requests to continue this series. So, we thought let's do this series for this week as well. Okay, right. So, let me start by sharing my screen. Okay. Right. I believe the screen is visible to you all. Yes. So, okay, we have moved a few slides. Okay. So, welcome again to our UPPSC exam practice session 5. All right. Are you all ready? Great. So, let's move on to the first question for tonight. In the opening scene of Look Back in Anger, in the opening scene of Look Back in Anger, which specific intellectual and social phenomena does Jimmy Porter attack, reflecting the angry young men movement's disdain for complacency? Tell me, tell me, what is Jimmy Porter attacking here? Is it the rise of industrial automation, the Sunday papers, and the middle class intellectual apathy, the expansion of the British Empire, or the influence of American cinema in London? What is Jimmy Porter attacking in the opening scene of this play, Look Back in Anger? He's attacking the Sunday papers and the middle class intellectual apathy, right? Yes. So, in the opening scene of Look Back in Anger, Jimmy Porter attacks the complacency, intellectual inertia, and emotional stagnation of the British middle class, specifically through his rant against the staid, repetitive nature of Sunday papers like the Sunday Times and Observer. Reflecting the angry young men movement's disdain, Jimmy's opening diatribe targets the following factors like complacency and inaction, okay, the intellectual inertia of the middle class, and he targets certain newspapers for this emotional and intellectual stagnation of the middle class. Okay, and this happens in the opening scene of Look Back in Anger by John Osborne. Clear? Great. Next. In W.H. Auden's Musée des Beaux-Arts, what is the primary thematic consequence of the old master's understanding of human suffering? What is it that we get to know about his understanding of human suffering? How does he see suffering? Suffering as a grand heroic sacrifice that unites communities? Absolutely not. Suffering as a momentary disturbance that is quickly forgotten by the state. Again, state is not mentioned. Or it can be. Let's see. Suffering is shown to occur while others go about their mundane, self-absorbed routines. This sounds correct, right? Or suffering is rendered insignificant, suggesting that only a religious devotion matters? No, absolutely wrong. It will be suffering is shown to occur while others go about their mundane, self-absorbed routines. Right? In W.H. Auden's Musée des Beaux-Arts, the primary thematic consequence of the old master's understanding of suffering is that what? Is that tragedy and human suffering take place in isolation or indifference, occurring in a corner, while ordinary life continues elsewhere. This poem suggests that suffering is an individual experience that often goes unnoticed by a detached, preoccupied world. So, the indifference of the world to individual sufferings, indifference of the world to individual sufferings. Right. In the solid Mandela, which structural technique does Patrick White primarily employ to highlight the subjective nature of truth, the gulf between the two brothers? Tell me. In the solid Mandela, which structural technique does Patrick White primarily employ? Is it a chronological first person narrative from Arthur's viewpoint? See, when you talk about subjective realities and subjective truths, chronological or linear narratives generally won't be used, right? A third person objective narration, again, wrong. If a work is talking about subjective realities, how can the narration be objective? A structure that presents the same timeline twice, first through Waldo's perception, then through Arthur's. This is correct, right? In the Solid Mandela, it's a very important novel. Patrick White primarily employs the structural technique of dual, alternating, or multiple focalization. Specifically, a split perspective where the same events are narrated through both Waldo's and Arthur's viewpoints to highlight the subjective nature of truth and the deep gulf between the two brothers. How truth varies from person to person. That's what this novel is telling you. How experiences vary from one person to another. Experiences are not homogeneous, they are heterogeneous. It varies from one person to another. And this is what this novel talks about. The truths vary from person to person. Okay, right. Next. In the context of the poem Harlem by Langston Hughes, the speaker presents several vivid metaphors for a deferred dream. Which of the following is not one of the possibilities suggested by the speaker? So, here in this poem, many metaphors, many imageries have been used to describe what happens when a dream is deferred. Right? He talks about dries up like raising in the sun. Yes. So, this metaphor, this imagery of getting dried up like a raisin in the sun has been used. The imagery of festering like a sore is there. It stings like rotten meat is there, but withers like a flower in the shade. This metaphor or this imagery has not been evoked in the poem Harlem to talk about the state of deferred dreams. Okay, so option D would be the correct answer. Clear? Right. Next. Dickens's novel Hard Times or For This Times, published in 1854. This novel has a tripartite structure. This novel has three sections: sowing, ripping, and garnering. And these three sections, as you can understand, they are evoking agricultural metaphors: sowing, ripping, and garnering. These are terms from agriculture. So, which of the following best describes the thematic intent behind this tripartite structure of this novel? To trace the rise, peak, and fall of industrial capitalism in England, to demonstrate the inevitability of moral consequences stemming from rigid utilitarian education. Yes. Right? The tripartite structure of hard times into sowing, ripping, and garnering. It serves to highlight the moral, social, and personal consequences of a rigid utilitarian education and industrial philosophy. Here, the agricultural metaphor emphasizes a cause and effect theme. It emphasizes the cause and effect theme. But the characters reap the unhappy or disastrous outcomes of the cold, factual, and unimaginative principles that were sown into their minds during childhood. So, what you reap, that is what you sow. So, this agricultural metaphor is very important in this context. The moral and social consequences of rigid utilitarian education, how it affects the characters and their destinies. Okay, right. In the Spectator's account of himself, how does Joseph Addison specifically define his peculiar, detached approach to life? As a participant in the Whig Tory ideological battles, as a looker on who is a spectator rather than a species member. Yes, he's a looker on, he's an observer, right? In the Spectator, in this work or in this issue of the Spectator's account of himself, Addison defines his detachment by framing himself as a looker on or silent observer who, as a spectator of mankind, engages with the world through speculative observation rather than active participation. He is a silent, passive observer of things and life around. Okay? He is not an active participant in it. Next. Are you all ready? The next question. I hope all of you are enjoying these questions. I hope all of you are enjoying this discussion. Yes, tell me. Are you all following? Right. In the context of Blake's Songs of Experience, the taiga is fundamentally an exploration of the sublime through which device. The serene description of natural ferocity, the rhetorical interrogation of divine creation. Okay? In the context of Blake's Songs of Experience, the taiga is fundamentally an exploration of the sublime through the extensive use of rhetorical questions. And this device is central to the poem's effect, as it creates a relentless sense of inquiry and wonder, directly confronting the terrifying and majestic nature of the tiger, and by extension, the nature of its creator, without providing easy answers. Only questions are asked one after the other, without any answer as such, in the course of the poem. And this rhetorical interrogation of divine creation, that's what evokes the sublimity here. That's what evokes the sublimity here. Okay? Right. So, we are starting our West Bengal Assistant Professor Interview course. Okay? The West Bengal Assistant Professor interviews will be held soon. And for that, if you want to prepare for these interviews thoroughly, really well, you can join our West Bengal Assistant Professor interview, where you will be provided with 8 intensive 2-hour sessions of interview skills training in 8 subject areas. We will be covering everything, starting from literary analysis, theory, cultural studies, interview skills, speaking. We will be covering everything in this course. And it will be started from the middle of this May. Okay, the fees is only rupees 3,000. So you can join us. Okay, right. Next, we have a question from Girish Karnad's Nagamandala. Girish Karnad's Nagamandala. In the prologue of Nagamandala, which specific event causes the story to take the form of a young woman and the song to become her sari? So, what is the cause because of which the story becomes a woman and the song becomes her sari in Nagamandala? Is it because of the curse of the mendicant to the man? No. Is it because the old woman in the temple snoring, allowing the story and song to escape? Yes. Yes. In the prologue of Girish Karnad's Nagamandala, the specific event that causes the story to take the form of a young woman and the song to become her sari is that the old woman who was harboring the story and song inside her, she fell asleep and she began to snore. And this allowed them to escape from her mouth. So, what was the reason that song and sari could escape? Story and song could escape because the woman, the old lady who was harboring them in her mouth, she fell asleep. And when she started snoring, story and song escaped. And this happens in the prologue of Nagamandala by Girish Karnad. Nagamandala. Okay? Right, next. Which structural anthropologists' work on myths does Derrida primarily analyze to demonstrate the necessity and impossibility of a center? Is it Saussure, Barthes, Claude Lévi-Strauss, or Northrop Frye? Tell me. Yes. Derrida, in his essay, Structure and Sign in the Discourse of Human Sciences, he demonstrates, or whose work is it that Derrida is talking about? He's talking about the works of Claude Lévi-Strauss, right? Derrida primarily analyzes the work of French structuralist anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss to demonstrate the necessity and impossibility of a center in his foundational 1966 essay, Structure, Sign, and Play in the Discourse of Human Sciences. He talks about Claude Lévi-Strauss, the anthropologist. Okay, next. In Christabel, Coleridge departs from traditional ballad meter. What unique metrical principle does he introduce, which he defines in the preface as based on a new principle? Tell me. He uses which unique metrical principle? He uses counting accents or stresses rather than total syllables. In the preface to Christabel, Coleridge explains that he departs from traditional ballad meter by introducing a new principle based on accentual verse, specifically defining it as counting in each line the accents, not the syllables, where the accents are counted. Right? That's his unique metrical principle, where in each line the accents are counted and not the syllables. So he departs from traditional ballad meter and he uses which metrical pattern? The metrical pattern where the accents in each line are counted and not the syllables. Okay, right. In a dance of the forests, Wole Soyinka purposefully subverts the expectation of a celebratory Nigerian independence play. Which of the following best describes his critique of history? How is he subverting and critiquing it? By showing the past as equally corrupt and morally flawed as the present, which challenges romanticized nation building. In a dance of the forests, Wole Soyinka critiques history by portraying it as a repetitive cycle of human corruption, moral failure, and violence, rather than a glorious past that guarantees a bright future. Instead of presenting an idealized, romanticized view of pre colonial Africa to celebrate independence, this play, A Dance of the Forests, it offers a warning, it offers a cautionary tale. He exposes the dark underbelly of the history. This play exposes the dark underbelly of the history. Okay? So he does not offer a very idealized and romanticized view. Rather, he exposes the grim underbelly, the dark underbelly of history. Okay. Next. Which phrase in digging provides the strongest evidence of the poet's ambivalent relationship with his heritage? Between my finger and my thumb, but I have no spade to follow men like them. By God, the old man could handle a spade, loving their cool hardness on our hands. Strongest evidence of the poet's ambivalent relationship. Are you all getting it? Which statement here talks about poet's ambivalent relationship with his heritage? Which statement here talks about his ambiguous relation with his heritage? But I have no sped to follow men like them, right? This line captures the core tension in the poem Digging. The tension between admiration for his ancestors' manual labor and his own decision to pursue a different path as a writer. That's why he says, but I have no sped to follow men like them. He admires his ancestors, but he does not walk exactly in their footsteps. He's full of admiration, is different from his ancestors. Okay, right? Great. So that's all from our side for tonight. I really hope you guys loved the session and enjoyed answering these questions. And if you want, you can join our West Bengal Assistant Professor interview course. If you're planning to go for these interviews to be an assistant professor in West Bengal, trust me, these interview courses will really sharpen your skills to speak and face panelists in real time. Okay, so do join us and see you in the interview sessions. And if you are preparing for upcoming NET exam, our crash course is going on right now. You can join that as well. Okay, so that's all for tonight. I will see you all again tomorrow at 9:30. Till then, please take care. Bye. Good night.